And on that note, we are giving Victoria the very difficult situation of actually closing up today's ceremony, which is really kicking off our Unleash Plus gender series. And she is one of our best advocates to really speak to what is it that we can be doing as a community to move forward in our very long journey for gender equity all across the world. Victoria is the director of Cloud Smart at HCLTech, and she's taken a lot of trouble to be here with us today. Though she doesn't look it, she's had some very long travel right before this, but is still bringing us so much energy. And I'm so excited for us to hear about her insights, her journey, how she reached where she is, what gender means to her. And we're just really grateful to HCL, who is a wonderful partner for Unleash across programs. They sponsor some of our programs, and they're really going to be helping us take this gender series to the next level. And with that, Victoria, over to you.
Hi, and thank you, Lakshmi, and the Unleash Plus planning team for having me here today. And I am with HCLTech. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina in the United States, and I have been with HCLTech for a little more than 18 months. HCLTech is the 5th tech company that I've worked for, and I'm just really excited about our most recent brand launch and the company's future to come. I'm even more excited about this partnership that we're going to talk about today. My current role is Director of the HCLTech Cloud Smart Cloud Services Transformation Office, and I have the privilege of leading a large global transformation involving one of our flagship brands called Cloud Smart, and helping to change the way that HCL delivers services through our extraordinary people, our amazing products, and our technology. A quick note before I get started, and to just kind of reiterate a little bit of what Lakshmi said. I arrived back in the US a few hours ago from an overnight flight from India. I'm currently in a quiet room at the John F. Kennedy International Airport. And so while I hope to get through this time with as little interruption as possible, please note, I cannot control any random boarding announcements that may creep into our conversation. So I appreciate your grace there. Let's just hope that most of the planes have taken off or are on the runway for the next few minutes and we can just go. So I really am thrilled to be with you on this call, and I am most grateful for HCLTech and the Shiv Natter Foundation, along with Unleash, who have asked me to represent this partnership between HCLTech and Unleash, supporting you, socially minded, young global entrepreneurs in advancing your solutions that support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Specifically today, I am truly honored to help kick off the first part of this special initiative to bring more focus on both the unique and challenges and opportunities that are related to gender bias, because we have both. Together, HCLTech and Unleash are committed to supporting efforts to overcoming these biases and collaborating with our partners and communities around the world to bring forth a global paradigm shift, specifically to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals number 5 and 10. We'll talk about more about them in a few minutes. Partner in collaboration with social entrepreneurs like each one of you here today is that necessary first step. So again, thank you for the honor of speaking with you today. An event like today's workshop could not be more timely or relevant. In 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals were created, the UN estimated that it would take 97 years to achieve SDG 5, which is achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. However, as we exit the global COVID-19 pandemic, the outlook is even more stark, unfortunately. In 2021, at the World Economic Forum, the UN announced that as a result of the pandemic, it will take an additional 40 years to achieve global gender equality for women at our current pace of progress. That means without direct and sustained efforts, not only will you never see gender equality for women and girls, but neither will your children and perhaps not even your grandchildren. So I am immensely grateful for each of you who are attending this workshop today and your commitments to direct efforts in addressing this problem. I was asked by the team to share some of my personal experiences around gender equality, specifically in my sphere as a woman working in tech. There are lots and lots of stories to tell, but I thought that I would share two. And I'll start with this one. When I was 27, I was offered my first reporting manager position at a very large global computer company. We won't share the name. And I thought that I had truly arrived. It was at that moment that it was okay that I was one of 3 women to graduate in my tech major at university, that I was one of less than 15 women in my organization of over 500 employees, because now the company had recognized my contribution and had offered me this position. I was to lead a team of 15 software developers, and we had an awesome team. It was great. It didn't matter to me that I was the only woman leader in my entire organization up to the senior VP level. I was ready for the challenge. What I didn't know, and what I later learned, is what that challenge would actually look like. That I would have to make extra effort to show my team's success and get it recognized by the organization. That decisions about our organization would be made on Friday afternoons during the all-male golf course outings, and then told to me on Monday morning that I would have to hire a golf pro for 6 months to teach me the game and get me competent enough to invite myself to those outings so that I could be part of the decision-making. And here's the thing about all of that. Exactly none of what happened was intentional by those around me. It was just the ways that people worked. It was up to me to call out the behavior and set up the different ways of working, even if it meant that I needed to take every weekend for 6 months to really learn the game of golf, which I actually found out I enjoyed, even though I'm still not very good at it. You may have heard the term, and I actually just heard it in one of our breakout sessions, unconscious bias. For me personally, I prefer the term innate bias. The bias is there. It's part of the DNA of the organization, and it is very conscious. It is just not addressed until it's called out. And unfortunately, it's the ones who are subjected to the bias who often have to do the calling out. The second story I'd like to share is related to the birth of my oldest daughter. When I became pregnant with her, I had a plan. Those who know me know that I like plans. My plan was deliver the baby, celebrate, take a short maternity leave, ensure that she had good, competent childcare, go back to work, and continue in my career. Uh-oh, here comes one of those announcements, I think. I naively assumed that all of this would just work out. And I know that I came at this from a place of privilege. At that time, though, not even realizing the curveballs. For those of you who don't know, that's an American baseball term, and forgive me for that. But I'm a really big sports fan, and my team is in the championship series right now. So not even realizing the curveballs that many women around the globe face every single day, that maternity leave is not always granted, that competent and affordable childcare may not exist, that companies may not offer you a position after you become a mom. Well, I then got the biggest curveball of all time. My daughter decided to arrive in this world 17 weeks early, weighing 606 grams. For the few of you on this call who are not on the metric system, that's 1 pound, 6 ounces, or as a good friend of mine once said, smaller than a large beer. She arrived in a blur, and she was given 10 months to an hour to live. But being the single toughest human being I have ever known, and I don't just say that as her mom, everyone she meets says it. She refused to die and has taken me and my family on the roller coaster ride of our lives since then. The first year of her life included a 134-day stay in the neonatal intensive care unit, multiple daily doctor's appointments upon her release, And we as a family quarantining in our home for that first year, with the exception of taking her to doctor's appointments. In the 27 years since, it has included dozens of surgeries, several stays in pediatric intensive care units, a diagnosis of deafness, a diagnosis of chronic lung disease, and a seizure disorder. And yet, she's thriving. She is university educated. She is a brilliant photographer. I believe that the loss of her hearing has resulted in an extraordinary lens for her to view this world, and she shares that view in her photography. And she is a joy to all whom she knows. So what does that have to do about gender equality? Let's talk about that. For me, Sarah's birth required a massive reshuffling of my priorities, specifically related to my career. I took a long leave of absence from my company, and I was grateful for the leave. However, when I left, they told me in no uncertain terms that my potential for advancement would be severely curtailed because being away from the office would cause my skills to lapse and I would no longer be considered competitive in the tech world. Well, I hate to disagree, but I assure you, women do not get stupid or obsolete because they take an extended leave to support their families. In my personal case, I became a master of operations and program management, shuffling multiple schedules to accommodate weekly physical, occupational, and speech therapy appointments, multiples of each, in addition to all the necessary medical appointments that she had to be taken to. They all needed to be done at university teaching hospitals due to her unique birth circumstances. I became a pharmacist, learning about the plethora of drugs I had to administer to my child daily, drug interaction responses she might experience, knowing when to call 911, which is the United States short phone number for emergency services. In the town where I live, Cary, North Carolina, all the local emergency medical service squads know the directions to my house. I became an emergency medical technician myself, and her doctors always joked with me about my honorary MD degree. I learned how to administer oxygen or restart her breathing when her immature respiratory and circulatory systems would forget to tell her brain to breathe, or when she didn't come out of a seizure within the 20 seconds of safe time. I became a PR rep, creating a portfolio of communications and marketing packages to explain to every teacher, every early interventionist, every therapist, every health and education professional who came in contact with her, how to work with a deaf child, how to respond to a seizure, what a hearing aid or later cochlear implant does, and how they work. And oh, by the way, that helped keep my electrical engineering skills sharp also. I have an engineering schematic of the very first cochlear implant chip at my house for reference. The point is that when women leave the workforce to care for their families, it is not a vacation. It is hard work, and it needs to be recognized and normalized and celebrated for the skills that are gained during that time. And while my case may be more of an exception, every woman who takes time to care for a family is learning and gaining skills, real world, applicable skills every single day. And by the way, we do all of this for free. Imagine what it would cost if you hired someone to do all these things. That's that innate bias at work again, assuming that this is the normal order of the universe without any recognition of the value. So let's fast forward. When and if we decide to return to the paid workforce, women need not have to start over, but that's what happened to me. I eventually returned to the paid working community, but with the status of a relative new hire, with a lower salary than when I left, and the need to prove myself once more. Companies have to look at the breadth of experience that all employees bring to the table, inclusive, not regardless of their life experiences, because it's our life experiences that make us valuable. This is particularly relevant coming out of the pandemic, where women's job losses increased dramatically as they left the paid workforce or significantly reduced their hours to take on more responsibilities at home. The extraordinary efforts by these brave women to keep the whole world moving during a global crisis needs to be celebrated and valued rather than viewed as somebody who is less employable. Now, respectfully, I have shared these two personal experiences with you from my past in the full knowledge that even though they were incredibly challenging for me, they in no way compare to the challenges women face in many countries and in so many communities around the world. I have lived a life of great privilege. I have access to medicine, technology, healthcare, and a great support network. And still, I've been exposed to the bias. As a cisgender heterosexual woman, I know the inequalities I have experienced are minuscule compared to others. And while I've presented some cases from my own personal lens, I fully realize that true gender equality happens when all genders are equal, and that has to include the trans, non-binary, and three-spirit communities. Which brings us to inequality from a more general lens. Sustainability Development Goal 10, reduce inequality within and among countries, requires us to look at inequality with that global lens. When the United Nations reports that 1 in 5 people have experienced discrimination based on one or more grounds that are actually prohibited under international human rights law, that includes gender identity or expression and sexual orientation, I realized just how much farther we have to go. Just as gender inequality for women was set back by the COVID-19 pandemic, global inequality in general has been hit hard. And we now have seen the first rise in between country income inequality in over a generation. With these facts staring at us, I believe that in all things hard, there are lessons to be learned. The COVID-19 pandemic has offered each of us the opportunity to reset and to rebuild the but whose failures were highlighted because of this global crisis. Because the truth is that COVID-19 is not the last global crisis we will face. And if the system started to crumble this time, imagine what will happen without intentional decisions before the next one. I also want to take a second and talk a little bit about intersectionality. Intersectionality is a bias topic that we have to continue to dive into, where the bias for communities where there is intersectionality, those biases are felt exponentially. I have 2 children who are members of the LGBTQIA community. I have 1 child who has multiple disabilities and is a woman. The bias that I have experienced in my life is nothing compared to the biases that I have seen them experience already in their very young lives. And while my day job is being a director at HCLTech, which I love, my number 1 and forever job is mom. I am called to be their advocate anywhere and everywhere that I am. While at various times in my life, in my career, I did not have a lot of allies to speak up for me, I am fully committed to building an army of allies, not only for my children, but for the generation to come. Allyship and intentionality in restructuring these systems of inequality is what it is going to take for us to fully address both SDG 5 and 10, as well as the remaining United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. Finally, I was asked to share my vision for teams of the future. Well, here first is my lesson from the past. When teams are not representative of all voices, the work output that is produced doesn't serve all those who would consume it. While some people view diversity and equality as numbers on a chart or a box to check, what diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging really mean is wholeness. The solution, the product, the idea that is offered by the team is whole. It is complete, and it is attractive to everyone, not just a select few. And you simply cannot get there without everyone at the table, even and especially if it means that you have to actively search out for those who are not currently sitting at that table. And that's what I hope today's workshop has started to address. That's my vision for teams of the future. actively seeking out and inviting to the table those who had previously not had a seat, people of all genders, people of all races, differently abled people, and not just offering up the seat, making that seat inviting and welcoming, making that seat accessible so that the occupant's voice is welcomed and respected. It's, again, back to innate bias. We have to stop thinking about the way things are and to call out and act upon the way things must be. So in closing, where do we go from here? Today's workshop was simply the beginning. I am thrilled to announce that HCLTech will be partnering with Unleash Plus to hold an in-person summit on our HCLTech NCR campus in India to continue the efforts to raise awareness, to provide support and increase advocacy for these critically important gender inequality issues in early 2023. Together, we will build an army of allies and take direct actions to break down the systems of innate bias and give all of you, along with countless others who feel unrepresented or underrepresented, a seat at the table to get your ideas, your solutions, and your programs the visibility they deserve. More information will be coming out later this year, and we hope to see many of you there. Or we invite you to join us virtually if needed as we continue these efforts together to support all genders to flourish in their entrepreneurial efforts that will help us to achieve the impacts in your communities and around the world for these 2 sustainable development goals as well as the others. So once more, I thank you again for the honor of speaking with you on this very important topic, and I look forward to meeting as many of you in person in 2023. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Thank you for being here and for your incredible remarks and for your vulnerability and willing to be sharing your story here with all of us. And for you, obviously, many of us are strangers to you. So for your being here and to be so open, we really appreciate that. And we're so grateful to have you even in an airport room joining us to share this and be here today. And we look forward to continuing the collaboration moving forward with HCL and with you in particular. And if we can maybe use our reaction buttons, or I know we're a little bit of a small group, but Victoria, we do have a tradition in our Plus group. If everyone can unmute and in your local language, wherever you're calling in from, if we can tell Victoria, thank you. So if everyone wants to go ahead and unmute, and we'll give just a quick moment for the unmuting, and then thank you.
Obrigada.
Thank you.
Annie.
Yadasi.
Thank you very much.